what I like to tell writers is not to underestimate the power of your words across all the mediums at your disposal. Yes, the trophy, the thing we're all looking at is a book deal, but there is so much more opportunity that writers have at their fingertips to bless, to inspire, and help just by sharing words wherever you can.
Welcome to The Whole Writer, a place where we talk about what it means to show up as someone who's grounded in their voice, in their community, and in their creative path, even when the world tells them to hustle, compare, or conform. I'm Nicole Meier, a multi-published author and book coach who believes that nurturing the person behind the page is just as important as refining the words on it. In each episode, we'll explore the terrain of writing life with honesty, warmth, and practical wisdom, creating space for you to write from a place of wholeness rather than depletion. Whether you're drafting your first manuscript or publishing your fifth book, you'll find conversation and companionship for the journey here. So settle in, bring your questions and your curiosity, and let's discover together what it means to write and live with authenticity and purpose. Hi, listeners. Before we jump into my conversation with today's guest, I wanted to share his bio. I also want to mention that Will's perspective is rooted in his faith. And whether or not that's your worldview, I do think you'll find his thoughts on the writing life genuinely encouraging. I know I do. Will Parker Anderson is a senior editor at Waterbrook and Multnomah, imprints of Penguin Random House Christian. Many writers feel shut out, intimidated, or alone in their calling, and Will is passionate about changing that. He helps writers feel seen, equipped, and confident as they steward the words God has given them. Through Writer's Circle, he opens the door of publishing and makes the next step clearer and less lonely. Will lives in Southern California with his wife, Emily, and their 3 children. Hello, listeners. I'm so happy you're here with me today. We have a special guest, Will Parker Anderson. And I won't jump into his full bio because I've read that in the intro, but what I do want you to know is that if you're not following him on Substack, that is how I found Will. And he has an incredible community that he has gathered over there with all kinds of knowledge and what I call nurturing guidance. So we're going to get into all of that today, specifically about something he writes about called the passion pay gap. But before we jump into all things, I just want to say, welcome, Will.
Thanks, Nicole. Yeah, really excited to be here and to learn more about you and the community of writers that you are nurturing. So thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. Well, let's ease into it. We'll let people get a chance to get to know you. I know that you have your own writing journey. Do you want to just share a little bit about that and then how you got into your career at Penguin Random House as a senior editor?
Yeah, totally. I mean, the main thing, I guess, for people to know is that, I'm an editor at Penguin and that's my day job. And so I get to help authors shape their message and whatever, it could be their story or something they want to teach people. But from start to finish, I get to be the person who champions their voice, helps them shape the message of the book, and then walks them all the way to the launch date. And so what I do is the 2 words I often use are creative and relational. Those are the 2 skill sets that I work really hard to hone in my work. And I absolutely love what I do. And then on the side, what you were referencing, I have a Substack called Writer's Circle. And the idea behind that was most of the authors I work with have established platforms. A lot of people would know their names in the circles that they publish in. But then there's people like me I'm also a writer. We're just trying to figure out the confusing world of publishing. And I realized that I could help be a guide for those that want to grow in their craft, want to publish their work, but they feel trapped on the outside. It's like they're not sure exactly how to publish their work or even to gain a small following. And so that's what the Writer Circle Substack is all about. And I love coaching writers, encouraging writers. And that's actually what led us to meet. And so that's why we're even having this conversation, which I'm grateful for.
Well, I just love that. And you're coming from it of what I call, and you're familiar with this too, of just like open, the gates, right? So you're not really a gatekeeper. You're welcoming people in, you're encouraging people. And I have to imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, that might be a little bit of a tricky balance because you are a senior editor and you have to sort of have your hat that you wear at the publishing house and then the hat that you wear when you're helping people, like you said, get unstuck from the outside in.
Absolutely. Yeah, I get DMs almost daily that I just can't respond to. There just isn't time. But people, yeah, they see the editor name badge and they think, sweet, Will can just get me published. That's not exactly what the Writer Circle is about. It's about nurturing our craft. It's about the fact that, sure, there are strategies that will help you move closer to maybe one day landing a book deal. But it's bad news and good news. The bad news is for most of us, we will probably not land a book deal. It's like any industry, like an NBA team doesn't bring on 50 players. Why? Because there's only so many spots. And that's just how the world works. And that's okay. That doesn't make publishers the enemy. It's a business. And so they have to keep the lights on and they have to bring on writers who they feel offer the best chance of return on investment. But something that's so beautiful, I think, is that beyond landing a book deal as writers, we have so many opportunities to help people, to inspire people, whether it's a newsletter, self-publishing something. I mean, even down to the more granular everyday stuff like handwriting notes. That's a personal practice that I have because it sounds sort of flimsy and sentimental, but I have received a couple notes through my life. And some of the things written in those notes have changed my life or helped me understand my calling or reminded me of who I was created to be. And so what I like to tell writers is not to underestimate the power of your words across all the mediums at your disposal. Yes, the trophy, the thing we're all looking at is a book deal, but there is so much more opportunity that writers have at their fingertips to bless, to inspire and help just by sharing words wherever you can. And so that's just as much a part of the Writer Circle as cracking the net of publishing. It's stewarding the opportunities you have with your words.
Well, that's a mic drop right there. I feel like we could just end the podcast.
All right. Well, see you, Nicole. It's been great. Just kidding.
That was really, I could just feel the collective shoulders dropping when you said all of that, because it's just why we get into this. We forget why we get into the business of writing. And you're talking about connecting. You're talking about a calling. I love the idea of the handwritten note. Complete tangent here. I once heard author Lisa C. speak, and she said, write one kind note a day. And it had changed her life.
Yeah.
And I have always thought that was the best piece of advice I ever got. So I love that you brought that in. Okay, so you actually gave me a perfect segue. We're talking about the Writer's Circle. We're talking about helping everyone with sort of their why and their calling. I want to talk about something specific that you write about on Substack, and you called it the passion pay gap. And that really caught my attention. So what made you want to write about it? Have you found that other writers really resonate with this feeling? Can you describe it a little bit for people that haven't read that post yet?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the average writer, we're looking on social media, we're seeing people maybe land book deals or grow their followings, start businesses, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs and solopreneurs today. So they're launching their courses and their cohorts. And it just looks like everyone's crushing it and making money doing the things that they love, which leaves the rest of us feeling like, dang it, I don't make that much money or any money from my passions. I guess I suck and maybe I should just hang it up. So the passion pay gap is the idea of, it's this Venn diagram. There's 3 circles. And the typical explanation of calling, like what were you created to do, is number 1, what you're good at. And then also number 2, what people will pay you to do. And then the third one is what you love to do. So it's like, what are my skills? What are my passions? And then what will people pay me to do? And the traditional view of calling says, where those 3 circles perfectly overlap, there is your calling. And so you will satisfy your deep desire for purpose and meaning and creative expression and simultaneously make a ton of money And there are people who do it. But again, for 99.9% of us, it's like, if I get paid to do my passions, like I actually saw this great Substack note the other day that said, huge milestone. I just got paid for the first time to write. And then they said, I made $20. And that is reality for most of us. You know, like we love to paint, but ain't no one going to pay us to do it. My wife loves taking care of our 3 kids. She homeschools our oldest. She's never made a cent on that, but that is one of her great passions. On and on we could go. But yeah, so it's this gap between how the world today tells us that, well, if you love something, you should also get paid for it. When in reality, it's just not true for the vast majority of us.
It is an interesting point. Someone's job isn't necessarily their passion, and it could also make their passion possible. So I know you have some personal examples of that. Can you explain that thought a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so the dynamic tends to be, if you don't make a living off your passion, then if we're not careful, we start resenting our full-time job. Like, man, this drudgery, this dead end work that's not fulfilling me, like I'm stuck with it. And I just wish that I could pursue my passion with 40 hours a week or more. And what I've realized slowly is that there's a perspective from which, a vantage point from which, whatever we do to pay the bills actually is funding our passion. And so for Writer Circle, I love what I get to share with writers, but chances are most people wouldn't come to Writer Circle if I wasn't also an editor, which, by the way, I love my job. So there's that. And I realize that that's immense privilege. Not everyone does. But to be sure, there are really hard days as an editor where, let's say, I really wanted to, the term we use is acquire a project, an author's concept. And I worked hard. I did all this paperwork. I met with the author. I did everything I could, and yet they choose a different publisher. And it's like it slips through my fingers. There's also days I'm more creative and intuitive, so I hate anything that is administrative and logistical, but I have to do a lot of paperwork for my job. I have to run profit and loss statements, things like that. So some days that's all I do. I'm just literally sitting with databases. I'm crunching numbers different ways, hitting walls, trying to figure out how I can make a case to Penguin that this is a project worth pursuing, that it's going to benefit us, not put us in the red. And so all that to say, I've just recognized that no job's perfect, and that actually when we look for ways to be grateful for how our job paves the way for our passions, even if we can't do it full time, it's a blessing. And then I'll just drop this in here. If you look at all of human history, if you had asked someone from ancient times, what's your passion? What do you see yourself doing for the rest of your life? They would have been like, what are you talking about? You know,
Interesting.
I was born to a farmer, like farming parents. That's what I'm going to do. What are you even asking me right now? Or maybe they would apprentice with someone in their town that would teach them to be a blacksmith or a candle maker or a teacher. And this is true in many places around the world, especially, I mean, there are places, sadly, plagued by harsh economic and political realities where it's really about survival, not choice. And so those of us in the West or in countries that are financially doing okay overall, every moment we spend pursuing our passion is a real gift. And for me, it's been really important to take note of that and to recognize, oh my goodness, what an honor and a privilege to even get to think about, that I have the time to think about my passions, and that I have a job, and that job in one way or another allows me to do what I love, even if it's not all the time, it's some of the time. And that's been helpful for me.
What a beautiful reframe of all that. It is so true. We need to step back and get that perspective because we get so in the weeds. And one thing I was thinking of when you were talking is there will be listeners today who will say, yes, it's a gift, but I'm wasting my gift or I am doing it wrong. And they're so concerned, like I said, we get in the weeds of we're doing it wrong. We've got this chance to write a novel and get it published, but I'm doing it wrong. and it's going to be too late or I'm going to blow my chances. So what are you thinking when I say that there is a group of people saying, yes, but, you know?
I'd say I agree with you. And I feel that tension all the time. There are certain things that we have to take seriously. One of which is life doesn't always work out how we wish it could. That's a hard reality to face. I mean, we've now touched on that 2 times in this conversation. Some people really want a book deal. It doesn't happen. Some people really want to pursue their passion full time. It doesn't happen. But what I would say is nothing is wasted. Every moment that you do what you love, just on a personal level, it's not wasted. We are not machines meant to run on efficiency. We are human beings for whom our passions bring us life, give us meaning, bring us joy, not to mention bless others. And that's where I would encourage people to really think through, how are your gifts an opportunity to serve the people you love and the people who love what you do? If you get to do that 2 hours a week, don't underestimate the impact cumulatively as the compound effect as you continue to sow those seeds in your passion, whatever it looks like. Don't underestimate the impact that can have on others. And I'm a dad, so I think about for my kids, one of the greatest things that they can see me doing is running after the things that I love. At the end of my life, I want them to be able to say, wow, dad really loved writing. Like he loved words and he used words to speak life over us, but also we have these written records of stuff that dad wrote. And I'm not naive. They probably won't want to read most of it. But even if there's something that blesses them, those words can outlive me. And so whatever your passion is, it will outlive you as you give yourself to it, as you leave the residue of your passion behind. That's a gift that you can give. So not to romanticize it or to overstate it, but that tension and frustration is very real. At the same time, I have seen many examples of how what people have left behind them in their lifetime that they just love to do because they loved it, the impact that it's made. So I would say it's okay to dream bigger as well. We don't have to be completely cynical.
Oh, it's so great. And I just love again, another beautiful reframe. And it is really important to think of the cumulative impact. We talk a lot about as writers, and I'm an editor too. It's like, it's not one title, it's the body of work. And what is the body of work? What does the body of your passion project, whatever it is, mean to you? And I just love that idea. I do want to stay on that thread a little bit because I know that you've written about different writers you work with. And there was one, I think it was a man who said he really missed getting up at 4 a.m. and having that ritual writing practice. You want to talk a little bit about that? Because a lot of people who aren't writers would think, why would you get up at 4 a.m. and write?
Yeah. First of all, we just lost 90% of our audience. So if that's his advice. No, this was a writer at the time. He was a CEO of a company and he had this spark, this vision to write a book. And so literally as a super high capacity person, I mean, this dude has so much energy. I work with him now as his editor, but he would get up at 4 a.m. and he would just crank on his book until, 7 a.m. And he just did that, I think, during the week. And fast forward, I think he's got 10 books or so published, several of which are with Penguin. And he just said, for as great as it is to now be a quote unquote author, entrepreneur, I miss those old days. I miss those days of waking up at 4 a.m. because there was a scarcity of time to work on his passion, which created an urgency and it squeezed him creatively, and some of his best stuff flowed out in that season. And it's easy for us to assume if I had 40 hours a week to devote to my passion, it would be paradise.
Right.
But
or not.
Or not. Yeah. Or would it be purgatory?
Yeah.
Because would you be then, you wouldn't have the scarcity and the urgency. And so it's like, well, I have all day to write. I mean, I would struggle with that. I'd be staring at that blinking cursor like, am I really expected to fill all this time and just all that output for hours and hours versus okay, like this morning, I think I had 45 minutes to work on my next post. I didn't finish, but I got maybe 80% of the way. And I've learned the art of just stepping away. It's like, okay, now my kids are up. So I need to get into them, read them a story, get them out to the table for breakfast so they can get on with their day. And that is my life. But I think part of the beauty of that process is tomorrow I know I'll come back to what I was writing with fresh eyes after a good night's sleep. And I'm going to immediately spot the weaknesses that I couldn't see this morning at 6 a.m. And I just learned to trust that process. So yeah, pursuing your passion full time could kill your love for it. It sounds heretical, but sounds so dreamy. If only I could spend all my time, but it might actually ruin the thing that you love. Not for everyone, but for a great many of us, I think that would actually be the case.
I think that's such a good example because there are so many of us who think, oh, if I got paid a full-time salary just to write every day and a publisher was just waiting anytime you want to turn your book in. But
yeah,
the grass is not greener. And it is true. We have that euphoria in the honeymoon stage of becoming a writer for the first time. And you're, rushing to get to the page and you have a limited amount of time. And that could go away. I could see that happening very easily. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So you touched on some personal stuff about how you are a writer. You have this wonderful job as an editor. You have this beautiful family, busy household, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
There are so many people like you listening that want to fit in their passion, their writing, but they've got the job, they've got the family. They've tried different things of, oh, I'll do the 5 to 7 a.m. writing. Maybe that's not right for me. They've tried writing alone together. Are there any sort of tips or bit of guidance you might give someone who really is balancing quite a lot right now?
Not really. And I'll answer in a sneaky way because I would never want to be prescriptive and say, oh, I write at this time of the morning. And if you have 3 kids like me, you could just map my habits onto your life because every human is different. Every person's capacity is different, even just our preferences. Like, when during the day do you feel most creative? For me, I feel like my tank is below E by 7:30 p.m., which is when our kids are all finally in bed. It's like I can barely read a chapter of a book. Now, granted, I read all day as my job, but so for me, it's the morning. Many writers, it's like I don't get anything good on the page until post 10 p.m. and they write till 1 a.m. That's great. Where I would challenge people is this. I think it's, for the most part, a myth that we don't have time to write. Now, if your spouse is terminally ill, if you have a chronic health condition, if you have to work 3 jobs, like nothing but grace.
Yeah.
But it is fascinating how often that will come up. And so where I would push back is simply to say, with gentleness, we make time for the things we care about. I do not like my alarm going off at 5:23 a.m. I set my alarms to end in 3. I don't know why. My wife thinks it's weird, but it goes off at 5:23. I'm not like, this is awesome. I can't wait to get up in the dark, cold, and start writing. But there's a fire in my bones that some days it's just a small spark, but it's enough to get me out of bed. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And some mornings I choose to just sleep and I'm like, screw it, of course. But the consistent pattern is I'm up and doing it. And it's not because I'm disciplined, quite the opposite. So for anyone listening, I am not the most disciplined person, and hopefully that will encourage you. But as an editor at Penguin, most of the authors I work with are not full-time writers. I would say, I don't know. I actually don't know if I can. Well, the guy we were talking about, he would qualify, but he's the only one that I can think of. Everyone else is a pastor, a CEO, an entrepreneur, a business owner, you name it. A couple full-time moms, and I consider that a vocation. Any stay-at-home parent. So they're squeezing writing into the margins of what they do. I remember one author told me she literally writes with her laptop out on her bed, with her kids like bouncing on the bed around her.
Wow.
And she just has zoned out. and is able to do that. But her life just has that level of noise and wonderful chaos that's what it looks like for her. And so I would just say, yeah, there is no one size fits all approach. But if you find yourself defaulting to that excuse, I don't have time, just ask yourself, not in a condemning way, but just ask yourself, do you really love to write? Or do you feel like you have to write, like it's an obligation? Or is it a joy? Is it something that gives you life? I think it was in the New York Times, this amazing journalistic piece where this woman felt so strapped for time. So she just audited her time for a period of, I forget, a couple months. And what she discovered is that while she was very busy, in fact, she had a baby at the time. So she literally was like pumping breast milk on the subway.
Oh my gosh.
Talk about multitasking.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what that would be like, but that was her life. So it was very busy. But when she got to the end of her audit, she was like, I spent this many 100 hours on gossip magazines, this many 100 hours watching shows. And she just realized, yes, I'm a very busy career woman and a mother, yet I have a lot more flex than I thought. And it was just illuminating for her. So that's what I would say to people is that even if you can do 30 minutes a week or whatever it looks like for you, as a mentor of mine says, the hard part is getting your butt into the chair. And we don't have to overcomplicate it. This is a mantra I say to myself. Like I can fiddle with outlines and research and like setting up my environment. And it's like, no, Will, like put your butt in the chair and just start writing. That's what it looks like. Like stop messing around, get words on the page, just get to work because when I do that, that's when I have the most fun.
Oh, so good, Will. I just love everything you said. And even though you didn't want to give guidance, it feels like gentle guidance to me. But it's also so relatable. So relatable. So I know that there's a lot of people listening right now that want to know how they can connect with you, what you offer in the Writer's Circle, where they can find you. So can you share all that good stuff with us?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm really a one-trick pony. It's all on Substack. And if those listening are not on Substack, that's actually fine. You don't have to have a profile, I don't think. I think you just can go to Writer's Circle on Substack. I'm sure you'll have the link, Nicole, for people.
Yes.
And if you subscribe, I would love to just send you my newsletter. It comes out on Saturday mornings. And it's purely encouragement about writing, publishing, and more recently, calling. We all long to know that we're fulfilling our purpose, that we have a purpose, whether for our creative work or just our lives in general. And so like the passion pay gap that we were talking about, I'll send stuff like that out just to help to give you confidence that your life, your work, your passions do matter and how to make the most out of them. So I've been posting a lot more about that lately too.
Well, that is a beautiful, heartfelt note to end on. Thank you so much for chatting with me today, Will. It was such a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Nicole.
Okay, listeners, I'm going to share all of the good stuff in the show notes. I would really encourage you to read the post that we talked about today. Follow Will if you feel like it resonated with you. And thank you so much for joining us. I'll see you next time on The Whole Writer. If you want to check out my coaching programs for fiction writers, visit NicoleMeier.com. That's MEIER. And if you like this episode, I'd love you to take a minute to leave a rating and review for this podcast. This will help more writers like you to discover the show and to get going on their writing journey. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, happy writing, everyone.